Howdy do, everybody. This is the Inside Handoff, a football podcast, episode 7. This is one of those rare times where we're going to be coming to you after a Thursday, but before a Sunday. So it's not the norm by any stretch of the imagination, but every now and again it's going to happen when we can't get our schedules to line up to record properly, or somebody falls asleep on a couch and goes AWOL until 1 o'clock in the night.
That's how the week goes, Johnny. Thursday's before Sunday.
Thursday is before Sunday.
Fall asleep?
His name starts with a Z, but we'll just leave it at that.
No, it's just that's going to happen. From time to time we'll be, a little later or even a little earlier some weeks getting out the podcast when we can, where we can, and how we can, just to try and get you guys an episode every week whenever we can. Of course, I'm your host, Johnny Venus. Pleasure to be here with you guys on this. We're recording about 45 minutes after the Thursday night game has ended, so it's still fresh. It has definitely changed our notes for this evening to a certain degree. Yeah, we're going to have a really great show. And, of course, joining me tonight, as always, is my lovely colleagues. Obviously, if you've been watching the show for a long time, we've typically had the same orientation of screens since episode 1, but we're different this week. We changed it around because things look a little differently. So instead of the corner where he's usually relegated to himself, now sitting above me, if you're watching, it is my boy Zach. How you doing, buddy?
I'm awake tonight, and I think that will help us get the podcast done.
It definitely helps.
When all three of us are here.
It definitely helps to be awake, or at least to know that, things might not go so well. I mean, this afternoon when I thought there was a high probability I'd just fall asleep halfway through the football game, I let you know. Instead, I woke up halfway through the football game, so a little different than we had planned, but here we are. It's Thursday night, and we're recording. Well, I guess technically now it's Friday morning on the East Coast, but hey, that's a little too technical for me. Joining us again, as always, Jer, how you doing, buddy?
I am doing pretty good. I did not watch a single second of the football game tonight, so don't come to me for any hot takes on that.
Don't worry, I was only like half watching the game, half not watching the game.
What kind of podcast are we? We have one person watched half and two people watched none. What are we doing right now?
I mean, I watched, I guess you could say I watched a quarter, because I had it on, I was listening to it, so, that counts.
Yeah, I listened to it. I listened to over half of it on the radio.
It was good, except for a brief portion of the third and fourth quarter where the commentary just stopped, like there was none. I could still hear, the stadium sounds, like the whistles and the ref calls for, penalties and stuff, but there was no commentary, and it got really weird, because you're trying to listen, and all you hear is the sounds of the game, but not actually see the game, so it's awkward there.
For some commentary teams, that might be an improvement.
No comment.
I never have to hear Dan Deerdorf again.
No comment. All right, we're going to jump right straight into all of the fun stuff we have to do, and there's definitely some news this week, a lot of, some stuff to talk about, and of course there were some things that happened tonight that, even if you didn't watch the game, you know about them, obviously, because they are definitely huge. They're huge news, no matter how you slice the cake. But we're going to break the huddle this week, and we're going to break it on the most important position on the field, and that is the quarterback. And the rash of quarterback injuries that happened this week. There were 4 or 5 starters get injured and pulled from games this week. That's a lot of injured starters for 1 week.
It really felt like there was I don't know if it's like a week 2 curse that the NFL has been going on the past 2 years, but I mean, week 2 has just been nasty for injuries. All across the league. And, I mean, this year was really no different. And this year we got hit hard in the quarterback room. And some teams might be better off. Chicago.
I find the Carson Wentz one the weirdest. The guy has 2 sprained ankles. 2. That is, what are the chances of that? That's just unfortunate. That's unlucky.
That's a skill.
Right?
Yeah, I
don't
don't
know how you pull that one off.
It's weird that some of these quarterbacks are getting hurt the way they are and how they are. there's just so many of them. I mean, you run down the list of quarterbacks that got injured in week 1. Carson, Tua, uh, Taylor in Houston, Dalton for the Bears. Um, you know, it's crazy that some of these teams are getting hurt. And honestly, really, if there's any one team that can't afford to get their quarterback injured, it's probably Houston. There's already enough turmoil in that room.
Yeah, that I don't think the Davis Mills project is off to a rip roaring start, judging by the numbers tonight. And Houston is its own big messy pile. I mean, Houston is literally falling apart right now. Last week they last week they no, but 2 weeks ago, I guess technically it's week 3. They dominated Jacksonville in week 1, and which I think is no big surprise because Jacksonville is what we expected them to be. Not great on either side of the ball, and then they just couldn't keep up with the Browns. And Tyrod was efficient in the first half before going down with, like Johnny said, the hamstring injury, and he could be out for up to 4 weeks, which led to the debut of Davis Mills, and he did not look impressive either. He was in the yards per pass play went from a 10.8 with Tyrod to a 5 with Davis. And he's their starter for at least the next 3 to 4 weeks. And I mean, if you look down that entire team right now, it's just an injury-laden mess. The wide receivers, you got Danny Amendola and Nico Collins going down. They're lucky Brandon Cooks is in one piece, although apparently he took a nasty hit tonight, so he might not, Chris Conley is going to be wide receiver 1?
Who took a nasty hit?
Brandon Cooks, apparently.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he took some not nice looking hits.
Flashbacks of that Super Bowl game.
Yeah.
That's rough. He had a good
game. So, they're just running through these wide receivers, and they might end up making some phone calls to fill up, guys who aren't on IR. So it's just a mess in Houston, and we knew it was going to be bad even before everybody got hurt. Now that everybody is getting hurt, I don't even know what to say about it anymore.
Yeah, it's a whole different kind of bad. Like, we went into the season, okay, they signed Tyrod, and he's just fine. He is a perfectly good quarterback in the NFL. He's not a star, but he's usable. He's in the Ryan Fitzpatrick category of starting quarterbacks. You're confident enough in their skills that they can do the bare minimum necessary to have a somewhat successful. They'll live up to expectations. They're not gonna. They're probably not going to steal you any games, but they're going to have a respectable season for what you expect from them. And you've got, the Deshaun Watson situation, which is just a giant dumpster fire at this point that nobody knows, what exactly that's going to look like in 6 months or, a year or whatever. I mean, it's safe to say that regardless of how any issues, come out in the courtroom, that there's going to be a suspension. There has to be. That's just the way the league has maintained itself. The accusation alone is a suspension in the NFL. Whether or not that's the right decision or not, that's an entirely different discussion. But, that's the way it's been. They run a kangaroo court, and that's really all the NFL needs to do is continue running its kangaroo court. And they've been, pretty uniform as far as that kangaroo court goes, but still.
Does that make Goodell Captain Kangaroo?
He is definitely Captain Kangaroo. But it's a weird situation. And now you got Taylor goes down, you got Davis Mills stepping up, who nobody expected to need to step up this year. Like, let's be real, nobody expected him to start week 1. Nobody expected him to start at all this season, really. And now Taylor's down, and who's their backup at this point? Jeff Driscoll, I think they put on the roster this week. They're gonna put somebody. They're gonna put somebody there. It is bad. That team is. They are making the mid-2000s Browns look like a well-run organization at this point, And that is something I never thought I'd say. Like the 0-16 Lions from about 10 years ago, something like that,
Like that, yeah.
when they did it the first time, then the Browns did it a few years later. This is ridiculously bad. I mean, yes, they got a win in week 1, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's the only win they get all season.
It's not a quality win. I mean, you don't hang your hat on that win.
No, you don't. I mean, Jacksonville is a team that's in its own, bad situation that's looking like it could be another Chip Kelly conundrum based on things that have come out of that, franchise and locker room and stuff in the last few weeks. But that's another discussion for another day that is not on today's schedule. But it, some teams are better off with their quarterback getting hurt. And the one example of that is the Chicago Bears. Because Andy Dalton wasn't going to cut them off. Like, I like Andy. I think he's a good quarterback who got a bad shaft playing in Cincinnati as long as he did. He was the Cincinnati offense for a long time. Once they got past Ballmer and moved into him, still had some success in a very tough division, playing against the Steelers twice a year and all those other teams they had to play.
The Ravens and the Browns.
Yeah, I mean, he gets a bad rap because he played for the Bengals for so long, but obviously
that was just organizational mismanagement.
Yeah,
for a long time
it really
there.
was.
They did no favors for him the entire time he was there. I mean, maybe AJ Green, but beyond that,
no. I mean, it's just he gets a bad rap, but now they moved to Justin Fields, and that actually looks good. Like Justin has looked good in the limited stuff we've seen of him. He was deployed in week 1 in a few situations. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I believe he got the first touchdown of the season, or the first Sunday touchdown of the season.
Brought him in for that one series there, and he found the end zone, and then they just took him out immediately.
It was like 1 for 1 with a touchdown, but it was the first Sunday touchdown of the season. So I mean, I don't know. Kind of have to wait and see. I mean, he didn't look good the rest of the game after Dalton went down, though. Like, that's the problem. I mean, 6 for 13, 60 yards and a pick.
I mean, I think he's going to be a victim of his hype. Is he an improvement over Dalton? In some sense, yes. But in others, Dalton's a veteran. He's been around for 10, 12 years. So there's things that he's not going to catch that Dalton, has forgotten. So Fields is this enigma where, yes, you want to start the rookie who has all this promise, and he's a good quarterback. But I don't think he's going to be this 1-year wonder where he's going to lead the team to this promised land that they think is suddenly attainable because they have this top quarterback pick. And I don't think he's the guy yet. That their hands might be tied for the next couple of weeks. And even Matt Nagy was like, "No, Fields is only our starter until Dalton."
Yeah, I was actually gonna pull that up here. It was the conversation that Nagy had with a reporter on Monday. The reporter asked, "Is Andy still your starter if healthy?" Nagy responds, "That's something that I'm not going to get into with scheme." The reporter responds, "That's not scheme." And Nagy responds, "Yes, it is." What? I mean, I'm not an NFL coach. I don't pretend to be. Well, I mean, I guess I should say I do pretend to be on Monday morning when everybody else does when they're a Monday morning coach and a Monday morning quarterback. But I don't think that the starting quarterback has anything to do with your coaching scheme at all. Really? I mean,
it gets even better, Johnny.
That's a playbook issue. Like what?
So he denies that anything is really happening, and then so he leaves the press conference, and then he sends the PR guy back into the media room to say, Andy Dalton's still our starter. Then leaves. Like, are you that dead set against admitting that, okay, you know what? At least Fields is an option.
Mhm.
You know, and I mean, they don't have a choice right now.
No.
So it's not like they're flat out picking, okay, Fields over Dalton. This is the future where we're going in this direction right now. It's the fact that, okay, their quarterback is hurt, so Fields has to be the guy. And I don't know if that's a benefit for him right now this early. They don't have a bad offense. They've got a good run game. They've got some guys who can catch the ball. And the defense is good enough to keep them in games.
Mhm.
Got a good line, but I mean, that secondary isn't exactly gangbusters, let's say.
I mean, in this situation, like the one person who's probably most being affected by this right now is Justin Fields, who's getting no love from his coach. You know, like that can't be helping pump up, a high hype rookie who's, coach is not excited at the prospect of him starting. Like it's not difficult to be a coach and walk out there knowing the question is Andy Dalton still your starter if healthy? I don't know. We'll discuss that when he is healthy. Okay? That gives Justin the sense that if he plays well enough, he can take the job. And that's what you want. You don't want a quarterback going out there just trying to carry over to the next, to Andy coming back. You want Justin Fields to go out there and win the job. That's what you want. I mean, you want him to go out there and have a performance that says, I am this team, I am this franchise, I am the future. That's what you want when you take a quarterback that high in the draft. And this is just a complete lack of anything. Like there's no backup from Nagy, Like it's a weird situation to find yourself in to not feel like the team is actually behind you. Like I mean, we've all seen teams and franchises that fall apart when the GM and ownership and management decide on their guy that the coach doesn't want. We've all seen that happen before, and I don't know if that's the situation here. Because obviously Matt Nagy is sitting on one of the hottest seats in the NFL right now. His success or failure this season will determine whether or not he has a job next year.
It's a tough situation too, because usually you think drafting a quarterback gives you a 2 to 3 year window, because that's around, if you sit the guy a year and then he takes over the starting job, and that's kind of the pattern you would hope to follow for a quarterback who isn't your immediate starter week one. And I think it could be beneficial for Nagy, who is absolutely on the hot seat, might be the hottest seat in the league, to almost luck his way into this if Fields turns out to be good enough to be the starter this year, which the jury's still out on that. And, diminishing returns so far. I think drafting Fields was a desperation move by this administration because, like you said, they're fighting for their jobs right now. And they've been given enough rope, and I think they're at the end of the rope this year. So, and I mean, that comes back to the point of Fields, who could have a new coordinator, new head coach next year, new everything. So everything he's working on learning this year could be irrelevant come next season when he is the starter. So it's just a mess in Chicago, and I want Fields to do well. I think he's a good quarterback, and I think he's good enough to be the franchise quarterback for a team. I don't know if he's exactly your day one starter. See how it goes.
Yeah, it's a tough pickle. Zach, you've been pretty quiet on all of this. Is there anything?
I was just listening. Yeah, I got thoughts. There's not really any quarterbacks who like. There's been successful quarterbacks that have been year one guys, but normally when they're older and like, I bet the most I can think of the most recent guy is Deshaun Watson, and he was kind of in a similar situation solid defense with a little bit of holes still. Had a couple weapons on offense, and the O line was really bad. And Sean Watson show his skills. He was very, very talented, but we also saw that dude get beat up a lot. And then another guy recently that we saw have some success was Joe Burrow. And we saw him having some talent, and we saw him doing some things, and we also saw him get beat up a lot. I don't think it's ever a good thing to just throw your quarterback in there just because he's the more talented guy, and you were supposed to always put the best player on the field and yada. Even if he is more talented, is it better for him to get beat up? Is it really better? Or is Chicago winning a Super Bowl this year? Is he not? He's getting better at football regardless. Anyone who thinks that every week that goes by when he learns the playbook more, that it's just not him getting better is crazy. Could he get better on the field more? Sure. In a great situation where he's got an O-line that's protecting him? Yeah. In this situation where his O-line isn't going to do anything for him and he's already a young quarterback who has the instinct to run. It's just going to be pushed more, and he's likely going to get beat up. And even if he doesn't get hurt, I just don't think it's ever a positive for the guy to get beat up. And people are going to say, well, I used Deshaun Watson, and Deshaun Watson's career before outside stuff, external stuff happened, has been great. Sure, but they never fixed that O-line either because they had better success than they should and yada, yada, yada. Like this, I don't think it's a good thing. Like, if he clearly shows he's the best guy, this guy comes out this week, throws 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 70% completion, and then follows it up with something similar, you give him the job. You let him keep running that success. But that's very unlikely, and I don't think any quarterback is ever – like, young quarterbacks in week 3, they're just not ready. And Justin Herbert had success, but he was in a very, very great situation, and still they didn't win many football games.
It's a pickle to find yourself in as a young quarterback. I mean, a lot of what you said was stuff we kind of talked about on an earlier episode. You know, which do you want to do first? Get the quarterback or get the supporting cast? I want to say that was back in episode 2, maybe, if you want to go back in the archives and dig that one up. It is what it is. You know, young quarterbacks are risky and not risky at the same time. You want the immediate success, but sometimes you sacrifice some of the quarterbacks. I don't want to say career, but you're sacrificing the health of the arm and the health of the quarterback himself by letting him take a lot of hits early and often, and it's detrimental to the long-term viability of the quarterback. I mean, Joe Burrow, again, is a prime example of that. If he has a good O-line in front of him, does he get hurt last season? Who knows? Because it wasn't...
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, it wasn't, if it's a non-contact injury, then it's just happenstance. It happens. It's a crazy fluke of football, but, when you get hurt in the course of a hit because, you get twisted around or whatever, like the case was with Burrow, then you have to wonder, if we protected him better, does that injury happen? Do we have a better season? Does he have a better season? And how does that help the outlook? Just getting those reps in makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
So...
I just don't want to beat a dead horse. I think we've covered that now, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think, if you want to hear more about it, go back and listen to the archives, but you should be listening every week anyway, and if you haven't, go back and listen to them. Let's move on to what is, of course, a pressing issue, being as how it is relevant and that it only happened about 4 hours ago, and that is that Christian McCaffrey went down again this year, and it took him out of the game, and now we are waiting on... we know it's a leg injury. We don't know specifically what kind. All we know is that the team is waiting on MRI results to say anything more as of yet.
I'd like to go first.
Okay.
I hope he is not seriously injured. I love that player. He's one of the most talented players I've ever watched. And Chan, it's not my fault. I didn't do this. It was not me. I don't have powers. It was not me. That's all I'm gonna say on the subject, because I don't even want to go into it more, because it's a touchy place right now.
There's 3 things you can guarantee in life: death, taxes, and Christian McCaffrey getting hurt.
I don't know. I think Brandon Cooks getting hurt is more inevitable than that, but...
And not only that, I mean, DJ Moore and J.C. Horn, didn't survive the game either. That
I'm going to kindly request
Panthers
you not mention DJ
into
Moore.
A mess of their own, too.
Do you have DJ Moore in redraft, Johnny?
I do. Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
Dang.
I mean, he had a good
Dang.
game before he got hurt. He still had 10 plus points, I think. So, I mean, he was still there at the end, so that's okay-ish. I mean, he can get banged up a bit. That's fine. But, let's not. My team is not built to survive injury. I mean, thankfully, he's a wide receiver, not a running back. And if you saw my redraft draft, you would know why that's an issue, seeing as how I have to start James Conner every week as a running back.
And there's another major injury that happened Sunday, right? I think it was. Oh yeah, we have that written down.
Sunday?
Never mind, you have it written down. Never mind.
Yeah. I mean, it just McCaffrey is huge for that team. I mean, he was kind of holding that team together to a certain degree as their offense. Like he is the threat. He is the all-purpose threat. You give him the ball, he's going to run you over. Throw him the ball, he's going to run you over or run around you. He's the do-all. He is the wizard of that offense, and it allows people like DJ Moore to get open downfield because you still have to worry about McCaffrey close to the line of scrimmage. You eliminate that worry though, and suddenly that team that is right now 3-0 does not look good.
I agree. He's their slot receiver, and he's their best running back, who's also just one of the best running backs.
He's their everything. I mean, he is their offensive wizard. He's their offensive catch-all. He's kind of like a Travis Kelce, only instead of being big, bulky, and everything you want in that, he's fast and hard to get a hold of, and everything you want in that regard. It's a bad place to be in. I mean, I sit here and we're not redraft, but in Dynasty, I'm sitting here as that guy, and my eyes kind of light up just a little bit because I took a flyer on a running back out of was it Oklahoma State?
Yeah, you better get it right if you're going to talk all like that.
It was Oklahoma State he played at. He's a good Canadian
Yeah,
boy.
I know, but you're like, being all like smooth. I was like, if he messes up the school.
Took a nice flyer on a running back out of Oklahoma State in a later round. You might have heard of him. It's a good Canadian kid. His name's Chuba or Chaba, depending on which reporter you are. He's backing up McCaffrey, and suddenly
need somebody to back him up.
Suddenly, that value just sort of shot through the roof a little bit. If that's of course, I don't
beat up this subject too much, or I might get killed.
Your life is definitely in danger because you put the eye on him. You put the curse out there. Now, granted, you weren't the one tempting the football gods from high atop the whatever, and neither am I. I don't want McCaffrey here because I love watching the guy play. Just because he's so ridiculous. I mean, he has a highlight reel every time he touches the ball. There's a highlight reel possibility, but I own Tuba in Dynasty, so I could use the bailout, as it were. Like I was saying to Jared earlier, my team is too good to be 0-2, and that's exactly where I am right now. My top half. If my top half could, work with my bottom half, I'd be just peachy. But no, I can't get both to work in concert. And either my top half works or my bottom half works, but not both together. I need them both to work together. Team's too good to be 0-2. But enough tooting my own horn.
The best takes on this entire injury was from James Holzhauer from Jeopardy fame, and he pointed out that this Christian McCaffrey injury is exactly why you should never hold your fantasy draft before week 4.
I mean, that'd be ridiculous.
He's not wrong, because everybody goes down before week 4, it seems like.
I mean, he's not wrong, but at the same time, he's not right. Like it's one of those. It brings up like some of those crazy ideas of like a week 5 redraft or something. There's some crazy league plays out there that have rules like that, and and things like that. But to each their own, I guess. I mean, I like the chaos.
On to the next.
I like the chaos. I think it's fun. Let's move on to our next injury. And that is Brandon Graham went down. One of the anchors of that Eagles defense.
Yeah, he's a really good. He's a really good end. I hate seeing anyone. I'm not gonna pretend like I watch a lot of Philly, especially not their defense. So, but it does suck to see any talented player or any player at all to go down. But Yeah, that's a loss for sure.
Especially to a ruptured Achilles. I mean, he was their best defensive player in 2020. Though, to be fair to the rest of the league, by comparison, he was middle of the pack. And last year he had 8 sacks and 2 forced fumbles. And his overall PFF grade was 81.5, which was pretty good overall. And he was fantastic in the context of being on the Eagles. I mean, he was their best player on defense. But I think that's overstating his skills a little bit in comparison to the rest of the league, because the Eagles' defense really wasn't that great last year.
That's
So
what
he
I
was,
mean. Who really
he was the shiniest turd of the bunch.
Ooh, that's mean. I wouldn't go. That's mean.
Okay, not that far, but yeah.
He was the shiniest penny in the pile of pennies. Is that better?
There you go.
That's definitely better.
I mean, I certainly
I'd rather be a
understand.
penny than a bird.
I certainly understand the analogy, and it's not an incorrect one. It's just one of those ones that you say, and it's like, oh, that sounds so much worse than it really is. But I think we all understand what you're saying. That he's the highlight of the worst. I don't even want to say worst, because let's be real, there were worse teams in the division last year than that. Obviously you had the Giants, and they were, once Saquon got hurt, they were just barely a football team at that point. So, it definitely,
The football team was good.
the football team was actually, they were halfway decent. But let's talk about the big picture. The NL East is already I don't want to say dumpster fire, because it's actually not. Like we
But the
harp
White
on
Sox aren't that bad.
That's an American League team, an American League Central team. Don't make baseball jokes, Jerry. You don't
I don't know.
understand
Let's
the
not do
sport.
baseball. I don't do baseball. Get away from baseball.
I mean,
Allowed.
we're talking about the NL East.
Yes, we are.
Noticed that in the notes yesterday and waited 24 hours to make a joke about it. I hope you all appreciate me.
I said it too, like here just now. I said the NL East because that's what was in the notes, and I
It
don't.
didn't click.
It
Yeah.
didn't. It did. I don't know if I was trying to NFL East, if that's what I was going for, but that doesn't make sense either. Or I'm thinking maybe I was watching baseball when I typed the notes up or something, and that's just what happened. But
What division are we talking about here?
we are talking about the NFC East. The NFC East, yes.
Okay.
So,
The Cowboys, I think, are still the best team.
ironically, Philadelphia is a member team of both the NFC East and the NL East, so it actually is kind of funny.
There you go.
I think the Cowboys are still the best team, and Micah Parsons is a freaking talented player.
We'll
There's
get to him in a
reason why
second.
I wanted the Broncos to draft him.
We'll get to him in a second.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I'm not talking about what we have in the notes. I'm just
No, I understand. I understand that, but you're literally picking up the next topic already, and we're not quite finished with this
Sorry,
one
but,
yet. So,
well, he's part of the reason I think they're the best team, though.
no, I understand. I understand that, Zach, and I'm not saying. I'm saying we'll talk about him in a minute.
Okay, I'll stop.
But I mean, does that change the picture? I mean, the Eagles' offense has actually looked good this year. Nobody was quite expecting them to come out and look as good as they've looked on every play except when they tried the Philly again. The Philly special did not look good this time around.
Oh, that was a dumpster fire and a half.
Yikes.
I never thought the Eagles were the best anyways. I always thought it was the Cowboys, and I still do.
It's hard not to say
Because
that.
of Micah Parsons, right?
I'm not allowed to talk about him. I'm currently restricted.
So let's just say that it doesn't affect the outlook of the NFC East as much as it has the potential to. If the Cowboys can stay at the level that they're at so far, then it's probably their division to lose. I mean, especially with Washington going through the issues at quarterback that they have gone through. Losing their starting quarterback definitely hurts them when they have to move on to Taylor Heineke. And Heineke's not.
To be fair, that's more of a lateral than a lot of teams have. Heineke is probably the closest backup that you have to put in that's a quality starting NFL quarterback right now.
It's definitely not.
I like him.
It's definitely a backwards lateral. So if they drop the ball, it's a fumble and not an interception. So it's There's not going to be any discussions like we had in the what was it, the Tennessee Miracle. I can't remember the actual name of the play.
Oh, the Tennessee two-step, yeah.
I
Oh my
know
God,
that's
not
not
too
what
good.
it's called. But either
I think
way,
the
the Music
Buffalo
City
game,
Miracle.
right?
It was the Music
Oh,
City
there we
Miracle.
go.
There it was.
Yes.
It's not as debatable. We're not going to be up in the booth discussing is this the Music City Miracle. No, this is like a 5 yard backwards pass. We know that, but it's still close enough. But it definitely affects them. It hurts them, but that defense is still good. I mean,
Speaking
you've got some
of,
beasts on that defense that will eat if some of these other O lines give them a chance, and that's where other teams are hurting in that division. But let's move on to our next guy. Zach brought him up,
Micah.
and that's Micah. Traditionally he is, I believe he was drafted as a linebacker, right?
Yeah, but he just
Yeah.
does stuff. He
And,
plays football.
and obviously with the injury to DeMarcus Lawrence, that has left a big hole on the ground, on the front line, and Micah Parsons has been slotted in as a defensive end to fill that hole. Now, obviously, we talk about Micah. He's an extremely talented guy. Is that a long-term solution for him, or does moving him into the dirt like that have a negative effect on, his type of play? Like when I think of him, I think is that outside linebacker, that Khalil Mack type guy who's going to get, a Von Miller, who you can put him in the dirt when you need him down there, but otherwise, give him that running start and he's going to just eat. And if you have to drop him back into coverage, he's going to do great there too. Does this hurt his long-term value, or is it? I don't want to say a lateral move. Does this improve or hurt his long-term value?
I don't think he's a permanent end. I think he's just showing you guys what he is. If you watched him at Penn State, this is what he does. It's Penn State, right before I keep going. That's what he was, right, Jer?
Wow, if you're coming after me
Yeah.
for bringing up colleges and maybe being unsure.
I got it right. I just wanted to be sure because Jer's face froze in the thing, so I didn't know if it was him freezing or if I like that.
All right,
dude
I'll
did
give you
some
that. I'll
stuff.
give you that.
They lined him up all over the edge. They put him in mid. He has. Okay, the thing is, the Von Miller, he's very similar physically to Von Miller, and I'm not even gonna say his talents aren't similar, but I wouldn't really necessarily use him in the fall. He's more of a hybrid, modern day kind of dude, because you want that dude to cover middle linebackers, and sorry, in tight ends in the future. Like you want him to do that, so you don't want him just sitting on the end where he can't do that. And now if the thing is, the Cowboys aren't a 3-4. They're a 4-3. So if you put him on the end, he's going to have to play end, which means there's no way he's coming out in the linebacker to cover. And that's just taking away his abilities. There's just no point. Like you brought up Von Miller. We're in a 3-4 though. So Von Miller, we can pop him out in coverage when we want to. We can just swap that out because we still have 4 linemen in. They can't do that unless they're only going to rush 3, and that's going to put them in and he's just really not a big, like, he's not that big, you know what I mean? Like, he's not a small guy, but when you think of ends in a 4-3, you think of DeMarcus Lawrence. You think of Myles Garrett. You think of, guys like that. You don't really think of what he is, Micah is. Micah's a very I love that dude as a prospect. I love him as a player. I think he's going to kill it. But I think it'd be a detriment to leave him on the end, and I don't think they will do it. I think they're just if Dallas has nothing as the pass rush if they don't put him on the end right now with DeMarcus out, and they can't risk. They don't want even though they could technically win a shootout, they don't want to get into shootouts. Look what happened last year. Like you really don't want to be that. You still want to have some pressure, but in the end, I think all it means is that when they're when a team's looking at 3rd and 8 and stuff, they're in trouble when they see Micah and DeMarcus coming at them come say week 10.
And I mean, it's also a negative for the linebackers because who do you slot in his place? So it's like next guy up, but it's going to be an automatic downgrade no matter who you have to replace Parsons in his original slot. So, but I mean, with Lawrence out, you got to do what you got to do, and the defense is not Dallas' strong point right now, anyways. I think the offense is significantly better than even last year's offense. Even with Dak in there, I think everybody on that offense is hitting just perfectly right now. And Cooper he needs to heal up a bit. A nasty hit last week. The defense is just not staying healthy, and that was the problem last year too. The guys were getting hurt in training camp and didn't even start. So it's tough being a Dallas Cowboys fan because let's look at the numbers here. He looked good in the position on Sunday. He had 2 tackles and a sack against the Chargers. So it's a plus putting him in that slot. Defensive coordinator Dan Quinn loves the guy, but he's going to carry the bulk of that line that's already been decimated by the injuries. And, I mean, with them playing the Eagles this Sunday, he's going to hopefully put the hurt on Jalen. And maybe they'll come away with the win.
You've been waiting for an opportunity to make that pun ever since he got drafted, haven't you?
No. I just added it to my notes here last night. So I've been waiting about 24 hours. But...
Subject doesn't deserve any more time because of Jer. You just maybe not like him anymore.
I mean, I think you both answered the I guess sort of next question of that was, is him being a defensive end a long-term thing, or is it just to fill the hole left by, Tank? And obviously I think you both kind of in the course of your discourse have said that long-term, no, he's not an end. He is going back to his more traditional position where he can rush the quarterback or drop back into coverage on a more traditional thing.
Yeah.
So
he could be catching balls soon. So
well, it's a different issue altogether. We got one more before we get to them, and that is, we're not typically going to cover college a lot on this show, and we're not going to discuss it very often. I mean, obviously, Jared's very knowledgeable of the college game, and over the course of the off season, once we get to like spring ball and stuff like that, we'll probably talk about it a bit more because it is relevant, and obviously there's a lot less NFL stuff to talk about. But right now it's relevant, and that is that a head coaching opportunity has opened up in season, early in season, at a high tier school, which typically doesn't happen very often. And all of a sudden there is a notable name of an NFL coach, a member of an NFL coaching staff, who is being linked both to the job and saying vocally has interest in the job. I'm, of course, talking about Eric Bieniemy and the USC Trojans. You guys are far more knowledgeable of the college game than I am. I watch it just to get an eye on some of the young guys coming into the draft, and I'll watch the bowl games and stuff like that. But I don't watch it every Saturday. I know you guys religiously watch every Saturday, so I guess the first one, is there fire here or just smoke?
I think there's some fire. I think so. The USC job, though it's a nice job, it's not the best job. Obviously, like there's a lot of other programs that they opened. We'll say Oregon, LSU, Alabama, Clemson, Auburn, Georgia. Those ones are better ones to take. But USC is still a nice job. Obviously, Bieniemy would rather take a job in the NFL as a head coach. That's clear. But he also seems to keep getting passed over for some reason. I'm not really sure what it is. I'm not going to pretend like I have inside information. But it's occurring. So, if he was to go to USC and perform very well, I think at this point, NFL GMs, owners, whoever, would be almost forced to hire him because with his history with KC and then him actually head coaching a successful program, you would really have no reason not to hire him. But there's also the other side of it. If he stays in KC, he's likely to still get interviews year in and year out because clearly that's a successful franchise and they're doing well. And if he goes to USC and he doesn't perform well, or his team, I should say, doesn't perform well, then he has to restart something he started a decade ago and start getting into assistant coaching again. And he may not be an NFL head coach for a decade. So, like, yes, it's nice. It might give you a little more flash, but if I was him, I would stay in KC and just trust the process that at some point I'm going to get my head coaching job because they can't deny my knowledge and ability for that long. It's going to occur. But I think there's genuine fire, and I think when he says he's considering it, he genuinely is considering it. That doesn't mean he's taking it, but I think there's going to be real consideration, and who knows what happens.
USC is a dumpster fire. They've been a dumpster fire for the better part of this past decade.
You're meaner than I am. I was trying to be nice. Sorry.
So, here's the thing. I think Bieniemy is possible to take the job. I'm sure he's sick of. Has he interviewed for NFL jobs yet?
Yeah, like in the past. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's the thing. I think he is a victim of the Rooney Rule, in which NFL teams are obligated to interview at least one minority candidate for the job. They don't have to hire them, but it's the rule to interview them. And I think, unfortunately, he's one of the coaches who has been pegged at that. He hasn't, broken through the glass ceiling, proverbially. I think USC is a good destination job for up-and-coming coaches in college. For example, like Luke Fickell in Cincinnati is a name being thrown around as possibly taking the job because he's brought Cincinnati to be a top 10 team the past 2 years so far. But Johnny was right. Bieniemy has been quoted as saying USC would be one of the few college jobs that would pique his interest. So there's definitely a mutual interest there. They fixed the recruiting after they left Lane Kiffin on the tarmac back in 2013. They fired him when he got off the plane after a loss in like week 4. It was tremendous. But I mean, their former head coach Clay Helton didn't bring enough success on the field to where people wanted heads to roll almost immediately. When USC started this year, there was a checklist at the start of the season that was going to determine whether Helton was going to keep his job. And getting blown out by Stanford in 2 weeks or 2 weeks ago was the final straw, and that was the first thing on the checklist. And he couldn't even pass that, and they shipped him the hell out of there. And an interesting note, though, I don't know his name, but the interim head coach right now is not the longest tenured assistant on that team right now. Usually, you would give that job to the guy who's been around the longest. Nope. They're giving it to a guy who fixed the recruiting, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago. And it's an interesting situation for USC, and I think Bieniemy would be an upgrade to whatever they've had going on there. I mean, they're not a top 10 team in the way that Texas is not a top 10 team. And I think there's enough of a story there where Bieniemy goes there and it's his first head coaching job. It's going to get eyes on that team. Bieniemy is a former Super Bowl winning assistant. So he's got enough credentials there. People are going to want to come play for him. So I think it's a win-win for both, but I don't know if the timing is right for him. And I think there's a benefit of him staying for Kansas City and just biding his time a little longer. The job's going to come along. There's no way he stays a coordinator 5 years from now. There's too much turnover in the NFL for that to happen. He's too good to not be given a shot. I'm amazed he hasn't been given a shot in the last 3 years.
I agree. That's very much good point.
I think there's enough there to where he's not going to be with Kansas City 2 years from now. Whether that's USC, whether that's, he's the head coach of the Detroit Lions. I don't know. But I think there's something there, and we'll see how it plays out.
Maybe a Bronco, man. Vic might suck. The Broncos could suck the rest of this year, and we might hire Eric next year.
I think, just to top off what you said here, the current interim head coach at USC is Dante Williams. He has been part of the program since the start of 2020. So this is his second year in the program, and
Yep.
already he has been, elevated to the position of head coach. Although he is considered one of the best uh, college football recruiters in the country, so he does
He
have
fixed
that.
USC.
He does have that on his resume. But I think, and again, like I said earlier, I'm not too huge on the college football game, but the coaching roulette in the NFL is obviously something that you see every year, and I think that Bieniemy is going to take one more trip around the roulette, one more trip around the carousel, and I think there's a chance that USC might keep the job open until February. Run out the season with Dante as the head coach, because obviously he has the respect of the locker room through the recruiting efforts, and the team is 1-0 under him so far. Obviously, it's only one game, doesn't really mean squat, but still, I think they'll run the year with him as the guy, and fill the hole. Now, if somebody else falls into their lap that just checks all their boxes, then they're probably not going to wait. But if Bieniemy goes through this season and Kansas City continues to be Kansas City, and let's be real, there's no reason that's not going to be the case unless, heaven forbid, Patrick Mahomes gets hurt. Then suddenly things you start asking some questions. If next man up doesn't have success, then you can start asking those questions of whose fault is it. But assuming Kansas City continues to be Kansas City, and there's no indication that they won't be, if Bieniemy does not land in an NFL head coaching gig at the end of this season, I think he's just going to walk away. What did you just do, Zach?
Oh man, God, it done. Sorry, I'll fix it. I'll fix it. I was trying to just look at the notes real quick. I didn't know I was gonna do this.
But I
For
think
those listening, Zach's video went sideways.
Yeah, if
'cause he
you're
probably minimized our
yeah,
recording.
if you're not watching
program.
the video, then you missed that Zach just went. He went from horizontal like a normal person to vertical like a crazy person, and it
Am I
just
back? Am I
you're
good
good.
now?
You're good. You're good.
Yes, you're good.
But I think if Bieniemy doesn't land a head coaching job in the NFL to start the 2022 season, that's it. I mean, I don't think he's going to walk away from the game because obviously that'd be ridiculous. He's too hot a candidate to get a job somewhere else. Whether that is USC or some other, stud program opens up in the off season, I don't know the coach. I mean, I'm sure there's some coaches in some of those high tier programs that are probably looking towards retirement in the next little while, or obviously the roulette sometimes gets a little weird. But if he does not land an NFL head coaching gig ahead of the Super Bowl this year, which, presumptively Kansas City will be a part of, presumptively, they are the favorite. And if he does not land an NFL head coaching gig by the Super Bowl, or have plans to become one post Super Bowl, everybody knows what I mean by that, as in he pretty much shakes the hand of an ownership during the bye week and is the new head coach in whatever franchise. If he doesn't have a job lined up in the NFL as a head coach by the Super Bowl, then I think he's done. Because he's too. I mean, Jared's right when he says the Rooney Rule screws him, and it really does, and it also screws Kansas City to a certain. Well, it doesn't. Kansas City is like, yeah, go ahead, get a job, especially now with the changes to, the minority coaching rule that now awards teams with developing minority coaching candidates. If you lose a coaching minority to another team, you get a third round draft pick. I mean, that's
Like that, yeah.
a high tier pick. That's a guy who could potentially start on your franchise next year. So I mean, I think it helps them develop those candidates. It gives them, I don't want to say a reason to because that's silly, but it gives them a reason to develop them a little more and kind of push them a little harder to move up the game and move around the game and stuff like that. But if he doesn't land a gig this time around, he's too qualified to not have a job. Really, like I think he's more qualified than pretty much any coach that got a head coaching gig in the last roulette, in the last carousel ride. I mean, I think he's more qualified to be an NFL head coach than Urban Meyer was. That's for sure. You know,
agree.
so it is what it is. And we'll see how things go. You know, we got a few months now to work it out. Obviously, you know, he's saying all the right things, that all he's focused on right now is Kansas City's next opponent. And obviously that's what he's going to say. But we'll see. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And there's so much smoke here that there's got to be some degree of fire.
Look, I
Let's
think
move
we've already
on.
been going for like an hour.
The what?
I think we've already been recording for an hour. Holy shit.
Just shy of it. Just shy of it. We're at 55 minutes. Um, so let's move on to our last topic before we break the huddle for good, and that is obviously there's been a lot of I don't want to say calamity, but there's been a lot of confusion in regards to the ownership of the Denver Broncos since Pat Bowlen passed away. It seems like that is finally coming to a head, and we are going to get a permanent decision on Broncos ownership, whether it is one of the other members of the family stepping up to, control principal interest, or a new ownership group coming in. And there's some big names apparently sniffing around this franchise, and we'll touch on some of those in a second. But apparently we have an ownership decision looming in Denver. Zach, you're a fan of the Broncos, so obviously I'm sure you've been watching this with a much more keen eye than anyone else to a certain degree. What do you think? What's your take on what's going on?
I can't say anything because you just said we have some names, so I'm going to get yelled at again for saying a name. I want so and so to purchase the team.
So you want the Bolin family to just sell the team and walk away. You don't want any more of this chaos and crap to continue. That's fair. There's been.
I want a particular person. Obviously, I don't think it'll be just that particular, but he'll be the head of the group, I'm assuming.
I don't know which group you're referring to. There's definitely a few names out there that I wouldn't be mad purchasing my team. But let's run down the list of some of these ownership names that are. And obviously, we have the Bolin family, who may just, come to a semblance of agreement internally in the family to keep the team in the family, or sell it off. Obviously, that's an option. Option number 2, these are in no particular order other than they're just the way their names register in my head, and that is Jeff Bezos is looking at this franchise. You're a fan of the team, Zach. Is Jeff your guy? Do you want him to buy this team? No?
Nope. Not the
Is there a reason why not, or just no?
Because I want someone who's focused on this team. So,
fair enough.
Treat it like it's a priority.
Fair enough.
It'll take 2 days to complete a pass.
Boy.
That's a prime shipping joke, people.
I got it. I smiled.
All right.
Hey, buddy, in this day and age, prime shipping, you could get it the same day. So,
It's true. That's true.
Just saying. I ordered something one day at 2 a.m. and it got here the next morning. So
the name is. Fuck it.
Let's move on to the next guy. Obviously, you're no Bezos, and Jared doesn't think they could complete a pass within 2 days. Fair enough. Next man up, Steve Ballmer.
Nope.
Current owner of the Clippers, who has actually put some money into that franchise.
Oh, he's an invested person, but that's not. I'm not that I would hate him, but I just want a different name.
Okay, now
Isn't he the really excited Microsoft guy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he is the huggy Microsoft guy.
Okay.
Oh, it's the Clippers.
But let's move on to the next guy. Now, I don't know. Are they together in a bid, or are they running independent bids? Because we have two names of two very prominent former Denver Broncos quarterbacks who are both sniffing around ownership interest. One of them is a guy who I had no idea turned down a 20% stake in the team at one point. I'm talking about John Elway.
That was silly of him. That's not the one I want either. It's the other one.
I don't know what to say to that. I read that. I don't know I can't remember if it was this morning I read it or yesterday. That Pat in '98 offered him 20% of the team for $36 million.
Yeah, that was silly of him.
No, I don't know franchise math or not back then. I don't remember what teams were being sold for back in that time period. I mean, but
still did it. Seriously?
You pass up 20% of the team. And now that 20% is worth $750 million.
I want the other guy.
Of course, the other guy we're talking about, the only man I know of with a forehead bigger than Jair's, Peyton Manning.
That's who I want. I think he'll put his heart and soul into our franchise.
Is interested in putting together a bidding group to purchase the Denver Broncos. So Peyton's your guy. You want him? You want him?
He'd have to give up his Monday Night Football gig first.
That would be unfortunate because that's been the best part of Monday Night Football in the last couple of weeks. Let's be honest.
I don't even get to watch Monday Night Football, so. Whatever.
Well, I shouldn't say that. There was a banger week 1, but week 2 not so much. Well, I mean, unless you're me, in which case it was a banger.
One was fun,
but it was a different kind of banger.
It was a Ravens game.
Yeah, that was a good game, but definitely. So why do you want Peyton? I mean, I'm sure there's other reasons.
He's going to put his heart and soul into the team. I think he'll be fully invested into trying to make our franchise the best franchise he can be in. He's a very intelligent football player as well. Football mind, football, whatever you want to call him. And I have full trust in Peyton and the path he would pave for our franchise.
I like him because he has a big brain.
Big brain. Big brain.
In his case, that might be true. Big forehead, big brain. What's your excuse, Jer? If you're not watching us on video or have never watched us on video, you're losing the beauty of these jokes. Okay, because seriously, Jer's forehead is the size of a drive-in video screen.
Okay. Come on. Well, we gotta pick on Jer for. Come on. All right. What's next? You're mean.
Actually, a relationship story that I'm going to share right now.
Oh boy.
Friend got caught cheating. Girl responded by logging into his fantasy team and dropping Davante Adams.
That's rough.
Ouch.
That's rough.
Seriously, guys, don't give girlfriends your fantasy passwords. What are you doing?
All right.
Like, good lord, man.
Give them your grinder password instead.
Are we breaking the huddle?
Yes, we are going to break the huddle, and we are now going to drop some Dynasty Dimes. And we are going to start with, are you guys prepared for sleepers? Do you have a guy?
Shoot. I had my guy. Oh, God.
Jared, do you have a guy?
I can't go look it up because I'll make
Prepared
myself
for what?
sideways.
Picking your sleeper. Your sleeper.
Oh, my
pick.
God.
Who have you got? Who's your guy? We're going to start with sleepers.
I like Chuba Hubbard.
That wasn't my guy.
Because look at what Mike Davis did last year in that role.
I can't.
And the Panthers are going to run the ball. They're going to use somebody to run the ball. I don't think the entire offense is going to run through Darnold. So it's next man up, and I think Hubbard's good enough to be the guy until and even I mean, okay, he's not a Christian McCaffrey. He's more than talented enough for the team's run game to just go straight through him. He could be that bell cow that they need until McCaffrey decides, hey, I can walk again.
I'll give you that guy, because if we were strictly Dynasty sleepers, then you'd be crap out of luck, because that's a heck of a percentage difference. In Dynasty, Chuba is rostered in 90% of all leagues. Fair enough. In Redraft, he is rostered in 39% of all leagues.
39%.
So he definitely fits it even if you're kind of averaging the two, I think he'd still fit. Zach, have you figured out your guy?
No, because I can't change. Because I'll change my camera angle if I go look. I forgot his name. I'm so mad.
If you think you can pull it up quickly enough while I do mine, that's fine.
But okay, well, get ready for my camera to go all weird.
Yeah, it's gonna flip. That's fine. We'll tolerate that.
It'll take 2 seconds though.
Actually, if it actually takes 2 seconds, then I don't have to do anything.
Well, not quite.
So, what the heck? What? I moved the backdrop. That's not what I was trying to do.
Uh-oh.
Oopsie.
Oh,
They're
Barrios.
having
Braxton Barrios.
Okay, guess what? We're in agreement then, because that's my guy. Braxton Barrios was also the guy that I picked as the sleeper of the week.
Yeah,
Which, if you look,
that's my sleeper guy. If Jamison Crowder misses another week, I think he's gonna put up a solid flex number for the week.
I think he's already proved that he can put up flex numbers. I
Yeah,
mean,
of course.
in week
I
one,
think that
in
will
week
continue.
now obviously these are our numbers, so scoring may vary based on your independent scoring settings per league. Some people run some really crazy numbers for scoring, other people run some very tight numbers for scoring, but these are strictly for our numbers. In week one, he put up 8.2 points. In week two, 14.84. Now, this guy is already the number 40 wide receiver, number 99 overall in fantasy scoring through 2 weeks. I mean, it's. I think he's a great pickup. He is currently rostered in 40% of dynasty leagues. Dynasty leagues. That's nutty. In redraft, I'm sure that number's even higher. Let's see. 5% of redraft leagues is the current number for Braxton Barrios. So it's a safe bet that he's available in your league, dynasty or sleeper. So yeah, definitely he's a great choice. Obviously, Zach and I are in agreement.
Yeah, I don't gotta add anymore. You covered it. So
Yeah. It just so happens you picked the guy I was gonna pick. So here's the next question in Dynasty Dimes. We're 2 weeks into the season. Now, you heard me talking earlier that my team in Dynasty is on paper a very good team. A very, very good team on paper. In execution, however, we're off to an 0-2 start. And this led to a question of a member of our league, I'm not going to name names, has already reached out to inquire if I'm in sell mode. Put the hand out and said, if you want to move either of two specific players on my lineup, that they were interested. It's week 2.
I bet I can guess the name, but I'm not gonna do it.
Of the player or of the person?
The person.
Okay, well, we'll leave that to your imagination. If they want to out themselves when they listen to this, they can go right ahead. But I'm not going to name names. You can believe what you want to
I'm
believe.
not gonna guess. I won't even guess. I just.
No, I understand that. I mean,
his name rhymes with L-bar.
What's it? L-bar.
His name does not rhyme with L-bar. I don't think I've had a conversation with L-bar since the draft last year because he didn't show up this year.
Shout out to L-bar. Love you, buddy.
Shout out to L-bar. Show up at a draft, L-bar. I mean, your dad was there. Why weren't you? That's a league joke. But
Okay, so yeah.
So when do you go? That's the question it brought onto the notes this week. Is when do you go into buyer and seller mode? When do you feel is the right time to throw? I don't want to say throw in the towel on your season, but throw your hands up and try and maximize the return for high tier players. When do you go into buyer and when do you go into seller mode if they're different?
I think record obviously has something to do with it, but I would say around week 6. If I was gonna put a week on it, I'd say about week 6 is when you got to start strongly looking at your team and making a real decision on where you're going.
I think mid-year probably makes sense. Only because then you have a very good idea of what your team looks like. The idea, okay, I'm not going to make the playoffs. I should probably sell high on something because there's going to be buyers. Every team has a stud. Even the worst teams in the league have 1 to 2 players that hit every week. Unfortunately, 1 to 2 players isn't enough to win any matchup in your league. There's always those guys that have the value. So you need to figure out when your own mental deadline is. And I think, mid-year, you have a good idea. If you got 2 wins, you're not making the playoffs. If you want to value some draft picks next year and kind of start building from scratch, starting in the middle of the year, and say, okay, you know what, I'm throwing the towel in. I know I'm going to get some buyers, so I'm going to get some decent return on this, then make the decision, okay, these guys are on the trade block. I'm listening to offers. I'm not going to go all in this year. I can't. I tried from week one and it's just not working in my favor. I'm okay with it. I'm going to try again next year with some good draft picks, or if you have, you want to give me 2 good starters for my stud, okay, work some ideas out. But I think probably, I guess week 6 to 7 is probably a good dropping point because then let's say a team making a playoff run is missing that one piece. Hey, their flex slot kind of sucks, and they need a guy who's reliable enough to get them into 15 points every week in that slot. Hey, this guy's starter is up for grabs. I'm going to go pick him up, and that's going to win me a championship. Well, there's your selling point right there. This guy needs this player. Give me his value so that I have a good starting point for next year. Now, I'm okay with losing, let's say, Derrick Henry, because you've given me enough capital for the draft next year where I can draft, let's say Najee Harris. So I now I've kind of flipped it. I've flipped the switch. I'm okay with not making the playoffs this year because I've got a stud automatically with that pick next year.
I mean, I think for me, going into buyer and seller mode is when specifically do you do it? Everybody has a different point. You may decide that you're going to be a seller before that point because your team is just, you're off to such a slow start that it's a hole that's insurmountable to climb out of. Presumably most leagues are somewhere between 10 to 12 people traditionally. You're either a 10-team league or a 12-team league. There's some that are higher and there's some that are lower, but traditionally it's a 10 or a 12. Once your losses become insurmountable to making the playoffs, then that's the point where your team has been, once you're, I don't want to say statistically eliminated, but once it becomes a mountain and no longer a molehill. Right now, like I said, I'm 0-2, but that's not insurmountable. It's very easily to climb out of that hole at 0-2, and in 2 weeks could be 2-2, and by the end of the season, heck, you could be 14-2 or 13-2 or 12-2 or whatever. However many games your regular season is, however many games your season is total, those could be your only losses on the year. Who knows? You don't. The fantasy football gods are very fickle, and they can flip a switch on you at any point. And it's outside of injuries. I think injuries change your strategy much sooner if one of your stars get hurt. If one of your stars gets hurt and you don't have a next man up to replace those points, then you kind of have to look at it and be like, well, I just don't get those points anymore. I can't get those points. What do I do here? That's when it becomes more important. I think somewhere between 2 to 3 weeks before your trade deadline is when you go really into buyer and seller mode. Now, for us, that's week 10. Our trade deadline is in week 10. So I think week 6, week 7, that's when you put up the big red flashing button that says, all right, my season's done. Who wants to make an offer? Let the buyers come to you. You can't be so... you obviously, you're not going to sell cheap because they're still stars. No matter who they are, they're still stars. If you're selling them off, you need to get fair value and, even make teams overpay a little bit because they're trying to buy a championship from you. So
Yeah.
you don't want to do it too early, but you don't want to do it too late because, like I said, the football gods are fickle. And if a guy you're holding on to as your big trade chip around midseason gets hurt between week 5 and week 7, suddenly your best asset is worth next to nothing because they're not going to play again. So it's tough. It's touchy. You gotta feel your own league, your own team. You've got to ride the. Also, it's about performance of the other teams in your divisions, your leagues, depending how your playoffs are structured. So right now, I mean, I win 2 games and I'm at 500 and I'm with everybody. I'm right there in the thick of it. It just as easily as I went 0-2, somebody on top of the pile could go 0-2 for the next 2 weeks. I could go 2-0, and suddenly we're tied at the top of the poll at 2-2, along with everybody else in the division. It's fickle, and it's way too early to throw in the towel on anybody. So it's an awkward situation. It's insulting to me as a fantasy owner to have someone reach out week 2 thinking I'm already in seller mode. It's a little bit insulting.
Hey! You had last week for all your complaints, bud. You don't get to sit here week after week. No, Mister.
Are you familiar? Are you familiar with the old saying, "It's my party and I'll cry if I want to"? Well,
yeah, we need our own separate. Once we break the huddle, it can be Johnny's party, and he can cry if he wants to for 5 minutes.
No.
It's my soapbox, and I'll stand on it if I
is.
want to. But no, I mean,
Yeah, but you already have that segment lined up.
I do. But that's different because
you don't get
last
it.
week's
He's
soapbox.
just making the segment twice.
I'll carry the soapbox out whenever I want to use it. No, seriously, that's it for that one. Everybody has their own choice. Somewhere between week 6 and week 7, it seems like is the general consensus for when you go into buyer and seller.
Ready, sell your fantasy team. Chaos.
All right.
What are we on to now? Pick?
It's the last one in the Dynasty Dimes segment, and this is about a specific player. Zach Wilson owners worry, or he's going to work it out.
No, just wait. I mean, he's a kid who. There's no worry. You didn't draft him that high, anyways. 2nd round pick. You just hold on and see what happens. That's what happens with young quarterbacks. No stress.
Well, I watched a 12-year-old kid completely roast the entire New York Jets offense. Oh, I think the problems are a lot bigger than him. He's just a product of a really bad offense right now. He injured his groin or ribs, something in week 1. So it affected his week 2 performance anyways. Not that he had any protection going into week 2. But I think he's going to be fine. There's problems with the Jets that they need to address, obviously. And they're probably not going to be addressed this year. He's going to be a reliable starting quarterback. Sometime he'll get there. He's definitely one of the players who they just threw into the fire immediately the second they drafted him. Everybody knew, hey, this guy's our new starter. They traded Darnold away. This year it's going to bite them in the ass because I don't think he's got enough pieces around him to function fully as a quarterback. I think the offensive line isn't there to help him. They've got some guys catching the ball, but he can't. He's getting chased out of the pocket every second play. He's not going to be hitting any receivers, and the only people he's hitting with that ball are the guys wearing the other jerseys. So I think it's way too early to pass judgment on him because there's so many things flying against him right now to where we can't really judge his performance based on strictly him. That this is not on him yet. Let's see what they can do with the entire offense. If they can fix the offense, if they can some guys around him to give him time to make reads and throw the ball and actually function as a normal quarterback. But yeah, I think, and people are losing their mind already on him, and it's just let it down. He's gonna be fine. Give him time. And don't have high expectations. He's the quarterback. He's a rookie quarterback for the New York Jets. Come on. How high are the expectations going to be realistically right now, heading into week 3? They're not there. Hey, as long as he's upright at the end of the game, it's a win. Personally, I think it's just it's people overreacting even worse to week 2 than they do to week 1. It's what were they going to do against Buffalo? Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just, there's definitely a lot of people who are worried, after 2 weeks because it doesn't look good. His performances haven't been great. But it's just that. It's 2 weeks and he's the starter of the New York Jets. What were you expecting? You know, like, I mean, I think the perfect point to that is Sam Darnold. He languished in that system for so long and was just averaged, mediocre. And now he's had a chance to go to a new team, to a new scheme, to a new coach, to a team that actually puts players on the field that are good around him. And look at how improved a season he's having, in Carolina compared to all of the years for the Jets. I mean,
he's working right now to get the stink of the Jets off of him. That wasn't on him. That was on the Jets. People thought it was a downgrade from Teddy to Darnold, and we're obviously seeing that it really wasn't. Sam Darnold turned out so far, at least under a new system, to be a perfectly serviceable starting quarterback. I mean, it helps he's got a run game now, but...
I mean, the highest yardage total Sam Darnold ever had as a New York Jets was 3,024 yards in his second year, 2019. Okay. Obviously, again, we've discussed this pace is unimportant, but, 500 plus yards, almost 600 yards through 3 games. He's averaging nearly 200 yards per game. So it's much improved over what he was able to do in the Jets because the Jets are just garbage. Now you hit it on the head, when you talked about that. I mean, I think most football fans have seen that little Twitter video of the kid just picking apart the Jets, counting out the players and the independent rushers. Everybody's seen that clip, and everybody's just like, yeah, that's just the Jets. You didn't even really need to look. You just see like the highlight of the clip and what you're looking at, and you're like, yep, that's the Jets. Good old Jets.
2 linemen talking to themselves on the side. So good.
I mean, was it the Jets in week 1 that were literally blocking each other as O-line players? Like, I mean, the most memorable play of the last 20 years from the New York Jets is the butt fumble. The butt fumble, okay? When that's your team's biggest highlight in 20 years, there's a problem. This is a team that made 2 consecutive AFC championships. Can anybody believe
it was
that?
In the 60s.
No, I'm talking under Rex.
Oh yeah, true.
They did consecutive AFC championship games under Rex Ryan about 10 years ago. So I mean, it's a fairly recent memory, and here you are, Mr. Football, thinking you have to go back to the 60s and Johnny Football. Oh boy. That's nope. Good old Broadway
Nope.
Joe is where I'm going. You have to go back to Broadway Joe to get to the last time they did that, and
And baby,
I am getting tired. Jesus.
There isn't much to worry about. We don't have too much left to go, Zach. So you were doing good here. All right, that's gonna do it for Dynasty Dimes. We're gonna move on to the booth review. I'm gonna do it very quickly because there isn't really too much to talk
I just
about.
keep covering my mouth. I keep muting and covering my mouth because I'm yawning like a mother.
There isn't really too much to review.
I'm yawning a lot, and I'm trying not to just keep doing it in the mic. It's nuts. I'm like just sitting here like this.
Thankfully,
he'll be asleep by the time Johnny gets on his 6th soapbox.
Thankfully, there isn't too much to discuss about week 2. As much as we've had other weeks. So we're going to do this very quickly. And this first part of the booth review is very simple. I told you so! Okay? If you haven't,
what you told us.
if you haven't listened to last week's episode, I spent a long time rallying against the projection. The pace. And here we are in week 2. Gentlemen, week 1, Chandler Jones had 5 sacks. How many sacks does Chandler Jones after week 2? 5 sacks.
But Tom Brady's still on pace for 85. Tom Brady, man. Tom Brady's keeping
I
that
think
pace
Brady
alive.
is the exception to like every rule in the book. He's like 48. And
Yeah, Brady
throwing
is
touchdowns.
just, I mean, it's
We
Gronk.
don't hold the Brady standard to anyone else.
Gronk is
You're
Gronk
right,
is playing
it
like
is.
Gronk, okay? I mean, Jameis Winston, week 1, 5 touchdowns. Week 2, how many touchdowns? 5 touchdowns total. You
How
know,
many sacks did Chandler get in week 2? I actually don't know.
none.
None? Dang.
None.
That's rough.
So I mean,
You don't ever want to follow up a 5 with a 0. Even 5 with a 1, you know what I mean? Then you're like, but you don't want to be like, whoop, and then be like, I didn't do nothing.
exactly. Like that's the thing. Like
he's mad they didn't sign him between week 1 and week 2.
Right?
You know, you
It's all
go out there.
downhill from here.
You go
Right,
out there and
Johnny,
have
you're right.
you have one boom and that's it. You just can't. You don't follow it up. There are exceptions to that rule. Tom Brady, yes, okay, he's on pace. He's done it 2 weeks in a row. But the pace still isn't going to continue. He's going to have a week where a defense just shuts him down.
Right.
You know, he's going to have a week where he gets one touchdown and the running game gets others. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. It's the game of football. But, you know, don't get on your high horse because the guy gets 5 touchdowns in 1 week and expect that to happen every week. It's not going to happen. All right. We don't have too much to talk about either way. I mean, Jameis Winston's week 1 performance versus his week 2 performance. Week 1, he played like a new guy.
You basically covered that, yeah.
Week 2, he played like Jameis Winston, traditional. So, not really much to say there. Then the Packers bounced back in a big way against the Lions. Don't really
you should be happy with that.
I am. I mean, don't really have much to say about
Jones
that.
showed up too. Aaron Jones. Geez.
Yeah, the biggest takeaway from that game is not from the games, from the players. It is the camaraderie and bonding between the staff and the team and the story. I mean, everybody's heard the story. Aaron Jones, his father passed away in the offseason, and he had a custom necklace built with, a piece of his father's ashes inside the necklace, and he wears it when he plays games, so his father's always with him. Heartwarming story. On his second touchdown of the game, the necklace broke and he lost the pendant. Sad story. He had this, he said that if there's any place his father would want to be, it's in the end zone. Okay, that's great. It's still a sad story. Head trainer of the Green Bay Packers stayed at the stadium until almost 2 a.m. going inch to inch through the end zone to find that pendant. That's
crazy.
It's a heck of a story. He found it, yeah. It was returned to him that night.
I only heard the whole he'd want to be on the field kind of thing. I didn't know he stayed after. That's awesome.
The trainer was spotted by a reporter who was still there filing reports at like 1 o'clock in the morning. I don't know why. But was spotted in the end zone, like doing like inch-to-inch searches of the end zone to try and find the pendant, and he did. It was found and it was returned to him. It was in his locker the next morning. So
I wonder if that trainer got some money.
I am sure
he didn't do it for the money. Obviously, he didn't do it for the money. But if I was Aaron Jones, I'd be like, here you go.
Like, you're getting a hell of a Christmas gift from Aaron Jones this year. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So I mean, it's those things, that remind you of why you're a fan of a team and a franchise, and you love those kind of stories.
That's cool.
I guess the only other question, it's not even so much a question, is a thought. Matt Prater, again, 62 yards, not in Denver this time. Is he the greatest kicker of all time?
I don't think he's the greatest kicker of all time, but I think he probably has the best leg. Like power.
I think he's got a case for a Hall of Fame career.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know about best ever.
I mean, I'd have to dig up.
It's hard to gauge kickers on like a scale. I think. I mean, there's Vinatieri and stuff, but I don't know.
And the eras in which they play too makes a huge difference, I think, as well. Like you can never judge a pre-soccer style kicker versus, a post-soccer style kicker. Garo Yepremian changed the game. So it's hard to judge those guys. It's hard to judge them now with the different changes to aerodynamics and techniques and ball pressures and kick balls versus old school ball. There's so many different questions versus the greatest kicker. He's probably the greatest distance kicker of all time. I mean, he has 3 kicks successfully beyond 60 yards. I don't think anybody else has that. I don't think anybody else has more than 1 from 60 or more. I think there's a few others that have 1 from 60, but I don't think anybody else has more than 1 from beyond 60. So I think it's safe to say he's the greatest distance kicker of all time, but that's another point altogether.
Actually, a really good book about a kicker.
Okay. What is this?
The Opening Kickoff, The Tumultuous Birth of a Football Nation by Dave Revson. It's actually about a kicker from Wisconsin in 1912.
Oh, I thought this was a joke.
Everything I say a joke. Do you people not take me seriously?
Not really.
Our listeners might. Our listeners might because they don't know you. We, however, know you. So no, 90% of the time when you say something, we're waiting for the punchline.
Ball is a serious subject. Would
Okay,
never,
we're sorry.
ever
We're
crack
sorry.
a joke.
We still have to do our pick, don't we?
We do. So we're gonna just kind of punch
Thank you.
through. We'll skip the
You reckon
2-minute
it-
drill because we're already at 90 minutes. Unless you have one, do either of you have an MVP queued up?
Probably Kyler.
Kyler, Jared, do you have an MVP of the week?
I like Kyler really well. Or Aaron Jones.
I would. I'm gonna go with Derrick Henry.
I'm
Oh,
Derek
yeah.
as well.
Really-
There's a lot of contenders this year.
Really
this
came
week.
on in the
This
second
is a
half.
big week. That's a good pick. Derek went in. There's a lot of good football this weekend.
There was definitely a lot of.
It's like he forgot to show up for the first 6 quarters and then just reminded people who he is.
A WTF. Does anyone have a what the fudge sickle?
What was the really thing? We're gonna do this on the fly. What was it really big? What?
Well, I'll start. My what the fudge sickle.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. You go ahead. You go ahead.
My what the fudge sickle is clearly the Minnesota Vikings kicker. Okay.
Yeah, that's rough.
That just. Oh boy. I mean, it was
The
kind of a
recurring theme.
It is a recurring theme. That is probably one of the most cursed positions in football. I mean, I think he missed, 3 kicks in that game, including the game winner, which was kind of a gimme kick. It wasn't a particularly difficult one. I think it was, 34 yards? Something like that. It was about an extra point distance. So it's not a 40-yard kick to win the game or a 45-yard kick to win the game. It's an extra point kick to win the game or thereabouts.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
My what the fondue is what the fondue was the defense doing, leaving Rondell Moore that wide open.
Oh yeah, that one play.
Because there was nobody anywhere.
Yes.
What?
He was on the biggest island I think I've ever seen.
It was just like it was like people forgot their football went on in that section.
Yeah, he just had his own section of the field. Like it was like half the field too.
Like it's ridiculous.
And there was nobody there. Insane.
Jared, did you do your what the frog?
No, I didn't, but I'm gonna go with that Rondale Moore because that play just dropped my jaw.
Yeah, it was silly.
When they showed the replay, because you'd figure like there's somebody there, and he just beats the guy right and goes in for the touchdown. No,
nobody.
there was nobody on that entire half of the field. And I don't know if the safety ran to the wrong side or what went wrong on that play, but man, I mean he couldn't have asked for an easier play.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It's just
play,
one of
wasn't
those.
it? I think.
Yeah, it was a touchdown, a big touchdown.
Yeah.
It was just one of those. Every now and again you'll see like a run play where they'll just like part the Red Sea, and the guy will just run downhill, and nobody will come anywhere close to touching him, and you're just looking around going like, where was everybody? It doesn't happen very often on a throw where that's the case. Because you've usually got the safety out there or the back covering him or whoever. There's somebody there. Or somebody close enough that you could be like, okay, that's just a blown coverage. That's fine. It happens. They broke the coverage. Whatever. It's not often that you're just kind of like, hello?
Yeah.
But all right, let's move on.
Somebody got an earful after that game.
Somebody definitely got an earful of that game. Next week, we're going to do a new part of the 2-minute drill, assuming we get any. We're going to add Ask the Audience next week, so if you're listening to this and you have any questions about the game of football you want us to answer, send them in to us on Twitter, Facebook, wherever. Or if you actually have one of us on Facebook, send it to one of us. Actually, send it to me, because these guys are likely to forget them and not have them come recording time next week.
Whatever.
So yeah, ask the audience if you guys have football questions you want us to answer. Send them in, and we will dedicate some time during the show. And if we don't get to it, then we'll get to it in the following week. But if you send us a question, it will get answered in the next few weeks on this show. depending on time and how much stuff we have to cover based on the week. So it is now time to move on to Pick'ems, where we all generally had a better week than week one. The highest score in week one was the lowest score in week two. We had some consensus games that we picked wrong, and we had quite a few consensus games that we picked right. Everybody picked the Bengals. Whoops. Everybody picked the Steelers. Also, whoops. Everybody picked the Saints. Yikes. And we all picked the Chiefs. Yeesh. For victories, we all picked the Browns, we all picked the Rams, we all picked the Pats, the Cards, the Bucks, and the Packers. All got them right.
The best week?
The best week was, in fact, a tie.
Damn.
And
me?
It was not. You put up a 9 of 16, so you were above 500.
Oh my god, it's back-to-back weeks I was last, isn't it?
It is back-to-back weeks that you were last. Jer and I
Okay,
tied
so when
the
you
week.
send your Q&A in, don't ask Zach. You don't know shit.
Jer and I tied the week at 10. At 10.
All right, let's do it. I'm winning this week. Let's get this one. Let's go.
Jer and I were separated. There was 2 games that decided the week. Jer picked the Eagles to win. I picked the Niners. Jer picked the Cowboys to win. I picked the Chargers to win. Those are the 2 games that separated the week. Also, the Titans. Apparently, I was on an island there.
I can't handle this anymore. You guys got me all frustrated. Let's go. I need to pick my winners.
We have to give the loser his chance to redeem himself.
I was wrong on the Giants. That's why we went wrong on that one for the Thursday game. So that's why. And speaking of, since the game has obviously already happened, we all already had our picks in for the Thursday night game when we all picked the Panthers. So we all are going into Sunday 1-0. So we'll see if we can continue that streak or not. So we are going to start, obviously, with Sunday games. I'll go first, and then Zach, and then Jared, because that's the order left to right on the spreadsheet. First game, Washington football team versus the Buffalo Bills. I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills. Zach?
Bills.
Jared?
Buffalo Bills.
Consensus. Let's see how we keep going. Next game, Bears hosting the Browns. Yeah, Browns all the way.
Browns.
Jer?
I think the Cleveland Browns are going to take a gigantic brown all over the Bears.
I could certainly believe that. All right, next game is the Baltimore Ravens hosting the Detroit Lions. Probably a better game than I would be expecting it to have, but I am going to take the home team again. I'm going to take the Ravens.
Ravens.
Jer?
The Baltimore Ravens.
Oof, this is going to be a very tight week, it looks like. Next game, the Indianapolis Colts host the Tennessee Titans. I'm going to take the Titans, especially with Carson Wentz being hurt. Zach?
Yeah, I'm going to take Titans.
Jer?
I think Wentz being hurt is a more important aspect than you'd think at first glance. But yeah, I don't trust, who was it? Jacob Eason, the backup?
Yeah.
Ugh. No, thank you. Give me none of that. Yeah.
Titans to win?
Titans are going to win. If they had a healthy team, it might not be ugly. But it's going to be ugly because of what they have to put on the field.
Yeah. All right, next game is the Los Angeles Chargers hosting the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to pick the Chiefs to roll on them.
Oh, I like Chiefs. I can't bet against them.
And Jer?
Herbert is not having the year we thought he was going to have, and I think that's going to continue, and the Chiefs are going to win this.
Okay, next game. This one could be interesting. The New Orleans Saints host the New England Patriots. Yeah. I wrote it down one way, but oh god, I'm gonna change it. I think at home in the Superdome. I don't know how Mac Jones gonna handle the. So we are back in the Superdome at this point, right?
Hey man, I don't know, man.
I don't know. Maybe.
Man.
Last I heard, it was week 4.
Okay.
Johnny, it's supposed to be quick decisions. You're putting too much thought into this.
Well, if it was Saints in the Superdome, then I take the Saints. But if it's Pats in a neutral zone, I'll take the Pats.
Did you check then?
I'm taking the Pats. That's it.
I'm taking the Pats.
I am taking the Patriots, but it'll be a close one.
It's definitely going to be a ball game. Okay, here's a game where we might get some differences. I don't know. The Falcons host the Jags. I'm going to take the Falcons. Zach?
Falcons.
Chair.
I have to watch this game.
No, you just have to pick who's going to win this game.
Okay, that I can do. The Falcons, but
Dang it.
they're both going to try really hard to lose this game, and whoever wants to lose the game the least is going to win.
This is going to come down to like 2 or 3 games, it looks like. Next up, we have the Jets the Jets hosting the Broncos. Yeah, Broncos for me. That Jets team just is not a team.
I guess I'm losing another point because we said what had to happen if it happened last week, so I'm taking the Jets.
I think this feels like a game where you go in thinking the Broncos are just going to destroy them, and then the Jets suddenly...
It definitely has all the makings of a trap game.
Right? I mean, the Broncos could very easily put up 35 points on them. So... Broncos.
All right. Zach is the only person on an island so far. Next game is the Dolphins.
Tim and Rondell Moore.
This one is Dolphins hosting the Raiders. So we've actually got some choices here because we don't know Tua's status for Sunday.
I'm going Raiders.
He's got cracked ribs. He's not playing.
Sorry.
But, yeah, I'm also going Raiders because Tua's status is in question, and it's a rib injury, which is very easily aggravated. Zach, you also chose Raiders?
Yep.
Jer?
I think the Raiders are going to win.
It's hard not to.
Maybe Edwards will get a touchdown on account this week.
Healthy Tua, and I don't know, it's a different conversation, but... Okay, here we go. This game is very interesting, and I think it has all of the makings to potentially be the game of the week. And that is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers hosting the Los Angeles Rams. This is going to be a good football game.
Who are you taking, Johnny?
Oh, God. I am going to pick the LA Rams.
I'm going to go Bucks.
I am going to pick...
Look at them stats and stuff.
Oh, I was checking the over/under for this game.
Probably like 3.5.
It's
a 3.5
right
spread.
now the over/under is 54.5, and I would take the over on that.
Yeah.
But I think. Ooh.
You guys think so much. Oh, lost my stuff.
I think the Bucks are going to win, but I don't like it. Like I
just say your pick.
I think the Bucks are going to win.
All right, it's locked in.
Lock it in,
It's
Johnny.
Bucks.
The Bucks.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think it's going to be the Rams. They're going to walk in and they're going to steal a win in Tampa. All right, next game, the Seattle Seahawks host the Minnesota Vikings. I can't in good conscience pick the Vikings because they're the Vikings. I hate their guts. I think they stink. And
We know they won't win by a field goal.
I think they're going to be using a new kicker this week, so I think that's not going to help their team at all. So Seahawks, because they've got it all together.
I think Vikings. I got Vikings.
Okay. Jer?
I think the Seahawks are going to win.
So far, this week is decided wholly and solely on the outcome of the Rams-Bucks game. All eyes will be on that one. Next up, we've got the primetime game Sunday night, where the Green Bay Packers play host to the San Francisco 49ers. And I am going to take the Green Bay Packers. Zach?
I'm taking the 49ers.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to be waiting all day for that game.
I don't know about that, because that 4 o'clock slot with the Rams and Bucks, I think that game's going to keep me pretty occupied. But...
Who you picking? Stop.
God damn it, Johnny. Did you not get the joke?
I didn't. I guess I missed it.
Waiting all day for Sunday night?
Oh, right. You're singing the theme song.
Come on, people. Work with me here. The 49ers are going to win.
Serious.
Okay, you're wrong. Okay? This is our house. We don't lose in our house to 49ers.
Johnny,
fly a kite.
you've already had your soap opera segment or whatever it is.
Soapbox.
Okay?
Soapbox.
Whatever.
Soap operas. Soap operas are in the afternoon.
Just soap opera with the amount of crying he's doing.
Okay, Monday. Let's go.
All right, Monday night game. Philadelphia Eagles play host to division rivals Dallas Cowboys. This game is not hard for me to pick at all, and I hate picking it because if there's any one team that I hate the most in the NFL, it's them. It's the Dallas Cowboys.
Cowboys. I take Cowboys as well.
I've got like 15 minutes worth of content on this game. So here's the thing. Here's Dallas's offense. And
no.
I just wanted Zach to lose his mind for a second there, but the Dallas Cowboys are going to win.
I don't work in the morning, boys.
Okay, that's it. Cowboys, there's your win. So it's going to come down to 2 games. Either Jer will win by 2 or I will win by 2. There will be no ties next week. Unless
I can't win?
I said unless Zach runs the table.
Oh. Sorry.
In which, if Zach gets right the ones that he picked independently, he's on an island twice for 2 games, and
Vikings and Jets. Vikings and Jets.
If the Vikings and Jets win, then there could be a tie between Jer and Zach.
I don't want the Jets to win. I don't want the Jets to win.
But you picked them on the principle of... I understand. You picked them on the principle of if you pick the Broncos, they lose. I get that. So I'm saying if the Jets actually win and your streak breaks, then you have a chance of tying with Jer. You would tie with Jer if you run the table. If the Vikings and the Jets both win, you would tie with Jer. No tie situation for me. It's a win or it's a loss. We'll find out next week what exactly it will be. Guys, it's been a great show tonight. We went to...
Jer? Our socials, please.
What was that?
I wanted to be cool and do it for once.
Zach's giving us the bum rush.
God dang it.
We're getting the bum rush.
I wanted to beat Johnny to it. I thought I was going to get it. Dang it, and JR wasn't ready. He always gets to say, JR, what's our socials?
JR, tell him where to find us on Twitter.
See?
On Twitter, we are at Handoff Inside. I've been kind of slacking a little bit, only because I'm in school now. But I'm going to pick back up, and so feel free to hit us up with some questions for our Q&A session next week, which I think we're working on.
Indeed.
And, yeah. Good times. I actually shared a picture on that account yesterday that said Matt Ryan's leading receivers this season: Mike Edwards, 2 touchdowns, Calvin Ridley, 1 touchdown, and Cordarrelle Patterson, 1 touchdown. Oh, and Mike Edwards plays for the Buccaneers.
I find it amusing that I posted that in our football chat, and then 2 hours later, you post a different version of the same meme on our Twitter account.
It's tremendous.
So that is pretty funny. I enjoyed that. You can also find us on Facebook at The Inside Handoff. We're not quite as active there as we are other places, but we will eventually get a group up that we can, talk about football and all things football there, where you can, have your say and talk to us on a more ongoing basis about our opinions and thoughts and things like that on professional football. And of course, if you want a question answered on our show, send it in on Facebook, Twitter, wherever you can find any of us, and we will definitely get to it based on time availability within the next couple of weeks. Folks, this has been a lot of fun. We had a lot of great stuff to talk about. I got on my soapbox a couple times. I'll try and leave it at home next week, even though I record from home. So I'll try and leave it in another room next week, maybe.
Tell your brother to keep it company for an hour or two.
Just leave it somewhere else. All right, guys. For Jair, for Zach, I'm Johnny. This has been a pleasure. We'll see you next week for another episode of the Inside Handoff.